One is special town meeting for the town council as a annual budget presentation. If everyone could please rise to the pledge of allegiance, followed by more silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Be seated. All right, so before annual budget presentation, which is pursuant to C9's, lost the agenda for a second there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I should have the agenda on a separate screen. So pursuant to C9 Town Charter, the town council shall arrange for an annual budget presentation. Is intended to provide information and encourage public discussion. So go ahead to the next slide. So obviously the purpose is, as was mentioned, we'll be doing a high-level review of the budget process and community planning process, a summary of expenditures, a summary of revenue, and then we'll end off the meeting with public input and questions. And I just want to thank all the staff and the interim town manager being here tonight. So if there are any questions about specific departments, they are here. And I also recognize a couple of Board of Ed members here that may be able to provide insight on Board of Education related questions. So with that, next slide, which is the budget meeting community planning timeline. So to be honest, the town itself probably starts this process way back in October, late October or November, but the council really goes in full earnest starting on February 10th with the capital budget public hearing. And that's what, as is kind of mentioned below, is the developmental phase where the budget can be changed. At that point, 2 weeks later, we held our joint town council Board of Education meeting to discuss the budget. And then we had our review sessions on the 16th, 17th, and 21st of March with various departments. We had our public hearing on March 24th, and then finally we adopted the budget on the 29th. So at this point, April 18th, we're at the annual budget presentation. And as we're kind of in the informational phase, the town, the council are all sharing information with the public, and the budget cannot be changed at this point. The final changes would have to be made after the referendum, which will be held on May 3rd. So moving on to the next slide. So some of the goals of the budget that I believe, most of the council, if not all the council, really thought about as we went through this process was maintaining and improving services, especially just in light of all the changes that have happened with recreation, senior services. There's a higher demand that was mentioned by several department heads, avoiding employee burnout and improving retention. We've had a handful of department heads retire or leave the town recently in the past few years. So trying to improve retention and avoid employee burnout with improved staff. Also providing reduction to the mill rate, due to a number of circumstances. With revenues, we were able to provide a mill rate with the budget this year, and to provide a level of credit worthiness for the town. So this slide is a changes of expenditures highlight. So it lists out the general government, Board of Education, capital improvement, and debt service changes, all of which have increases ranging from 3.98% or $500,000 for the town to about 1.08% or $50,000 in increase for debt service. But overall, the total increase in the budget is 3.25% or about $1.89 million. So what does that 3.25 do for town services? Predominantly, a lot of that is the salary increases, which include new and reinstated positions, as well as the remaining balance of the grants and project manager that was partially added in fiscal year 22-21. FICA, Medicare, employee deferment contributions, fuel and oil. Some professional services went up for state trooper costs. Health insurance, refuse disposal, and capital improvements is the second largest portion of the increase. So going to that top line item, that's the highest value of the budget. Thank you. Oh, you can go to the next slide.
Oh.
So there's the addition of the one public safety officer. This was in line with our goals and our efforts to apply for the SAFER grant. So the salary is built into the budget. However, if we do get the grant, it will be covered, and there'll be an opportunity to discuss policy on how to utilize those funds to kind of build in and minimize the impact of the 3-year grant period once we hire all 3 public safety officers. In addition, we're reinstating a full-time public works laborer position. There have been a number of delays with storm incidences and other activities in town, as well as overtime issues that we're hoping to alleviate with this position being reinstated. Next slide. There's another new position, is the part-time senior center position. I kind of see this position personally. I think Kim would probably say the same. It's essentially a triage position for when people come in. A lot of times, Kim mentioned at our meetings that they have to answer the phones. They're the first point of contact for seniors to get services and information. And it takes Kim away from being able to really focus on a lot of programmatic and other tasks that a director would be able to execute. So this assistant position part-time would help alleviate that and help seniors on the side. And then another reinstatement is starting April of next year is a part-time recreation coordinator. This was an eliminated position as stated. With the rebounding use of the recreation department, there was a desire to have this position brought back into the town budget so that programming can be more robust. I believe at one point Bruce had mentioned that a lot of their programming, they're developing it, they're establishing it, they're promoting it, and then they're actually at the event managing it. And so this part-time coordinator would help manage a lot of that process. And sort of as a preview for next week, I believe we're going to hear from the mental health task force that recreation was a very key focus of one of their recent goals. And so this position may be beneficial to their needs to help reduce mental health and substance use issues. On to the next slide. Yeah. So in additionally, what does 3.25 do for school services? A number of service positions are being added that would be maintained with this budget, including a full-time TMS/TA social studies teacher, facilities personnel, math teacher, school counselor, and there are a number of other Board of Ed factors that were highlighted. I believe, thank you, Dr. Will, for sending over some of this information, including some of the reductions that were made based off of the town manager's recommended budget that was adopted by the council in terms of reductions to OPEB, unemployment, workers' comp. So, and then finally, in addition, 3.25 for debt and capital services. Overall, this is increasing by about 117,000, and the 50,000 that's increasing for debt services is mainly due to the Birch Grove Elementary School and firehouse improvements. But in addition, on the next slide, there's a little bit more of a breakout on that capital improvement increase. So some of that is for the WPCA to fund proportion. There's 2 items that are related to the Board of Ed and the Public Works regarding replacements. I believe the next slide, we can go to that one, highlights some of the issues with the truck that's rusting away and is at a very severe level of disrepair and deterioration. And in the next slide, it highlights the school loading dock that has also a severe level of rust, and I believe it is no longer being used because it's not safe for the trucks to actually offload onto that docking station. So that is up for replacement. So moving on to the next slide is the debt management plan. So this page highlights some of the increases, most of it due to Birch Grove, but over the next 3 to 5 years, there's a hope to get us back down to about a 4.6 million for the debt management plan, which then allows us to kind of build up a pay-as-you-go debt program for various equipment needs for capital services. Additional budget highlights, there's a use of the $200,000 unassigned fund balance, as well as 68 committed fund balance for debt service and increased costs. It's mentioned in another slide, but that was kind of a phase down from prior years. So overall for budget expenditures, just to give another visual of what the budget looks like, you can see just under 70% of the town budget is for the Board of Education, about 21.81% is for town operating expenses, 4.7 million or 7.82 for debt service, and just under 0.5% or $255,000 for capital improvements. So in order to get to that budget, there's obviously a need for revenue. So the need there is $60,106,207. Part of that comes from ECS grants, which make up about 15% of the budget, or 9.1 billion. Other grants make up just over 500,000 or 0.89%. Various permits, fees, interest, are over a little, just about 1.25%. And then finally, about just under 0.5% is the contribution from the fund balance. So the remainder, or about 49.4 million, is in property taxes, which is 82.27% of how the town is getting revenue. But with that being said, there is an opportunity with this year's budget that was proposed to reduce the mill rate. There is an opportunity, I believe, based off of additional assessments, once they're finalized, if the budget does pass on the first vote, that we would perhaps see an even further reduction in the mill rate depending on where the final assessments land. But this page kind of highlights a level of market values, tax assessments, and then a difference between fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23 taxes. There will be a slide at the end if you want to calculate your own to see what your impact would be. So in addition to Tolland, we wanted to kind of show a high level of what other towns are. There is an asterisk next to a handful of towns that are still in the process, but we're utilizing information that is up to date based off of current information. So overall, the average between neighboring communities is about a 4.67% increase in their budgets. So Tolland at a 3.25 is actually the second lowest, made with Wellington being the lowest that's having an increase in their budget for this fiscal year. And additionally, with trends in towns, there's a list that has been provided of the average increase that was mentioned before, as well as the overall brand list change and the motor vehicle brand list change. So it does have updates that reflect pretty consistently. A lot of towns have had significant increases in their vehicle brand list change, as well as overall brand list change, with Vernon kind of being an outlier, with their brand list being 19.74%. Oh, due to reval, it was a revaluation year. That's what the double asterisk is for. And so finally, the credit worthiness. Again, in 21-22, about $460,000 is used, 350 from the fund balance, and 110 from the municipal stabilization fund, which I believe at this point has a $0 balance, or just about zero. So we currently utilize the entire stabilization fund for last year's fiscal budget. Whereas this year we've lowered the fund balance from 350 to 200 and have that again 68,000 in committed fund balance for debt. And as a statement I believe was reiterated a few times by our interim town manager, the $200,000 is a reasonable use and maintains our fund balance policy limits and also maintains our AAA bond rating. The next slide will kind of discuss why it's important. Tolland is very distinct. I mean, we're kind of with a AAA rating. I believe Greenwich, a lot of people towards the Gold Coast are usually the few towns in the state that have that AAA bond rating, despite being very different communities, very different economies. And so a lot of that is due to strong management practices and current fund balance use. So, and the final point here below kind of mentions what would happen if our debt service went down. It would cost at least $500,000 for future debt plan usage based off of that lowered grade in our credit worthiness. So overall, the way this budget is laid out, it does maintain and improve services for various departments, whether it's public safety, recreation, Board of Education, senior services. By adding some of these positions, it does help avoid employee burnout and improve retention, having more robust staff to respond to the needs of residents. It does provide a reduction in the mill rate and taxes where possible, and again, maintains that credit worthiness. I know this is sometimes a little bit of a throwaway slide because it's been several years since these two publications occurred, but I wanted to highlight them because I think we are on the process of a rebound, and I think we should aspire with this budget as well as our long-term planning to make it back into those two magazines. That's really a great place to live in this state and in this community being the best place to live in the state. So the referendum question will be laid out in May 3rd as shall the town of Tolland's proposed 2022-2023 budget of $60.106 to $707 million, reflecting a spending increase of $1.891,325,000 or 3.25% be adopted, yes or no. So there is an update. There was an e-blast. It hasn't changed to the Tolland Recreation Center. You've probably seen a few e-blasts about it in this room, or the program room, due to increases in COVID cases. We'll Recreation Center provides more spacing, so we'll be utilizing that space on Tuesday, May 3rd from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for all voters. So in addition, if you want to look at the online resources, there's a tax calculator to estimate your own taxes. There's a QR code, so for if you have a printout version of the presentation. Otherwise, there's 2 links here that will be able to help you find your assessed value and calculate the taxes. Additionally, you can find all the information for the 2022-2023 fiscal year budget on this link here, and you can also subscribe to the Tolland notification system to get more details throughout the budget cycle. And below is a screenshot of what that page looks like with all the various links, historical documentation throughout our process. You can look back at minutes, questions counselors asked, presentations, etc. And so again, it'll be at the Recreation Center. And if you have any questions, there's numbers there for the registrar's office, the clerk's office, and the manager's office for any voting questions. And parking is definitely available. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. If you are on Zoom, you can hit the raise hand function or hit *9 if you are on a mobile device. Otherwise, if you are in the public, you're welcome to approach the front row seats, and we just need your name and address for the record. Anyone from the public? Oh, Heather McCann.
Hi, Heather McCann, 62 Croston Drive. I was just wondering if you can include on there information for ADA accessibility, if you can let the residents know whether it is ADA accessible and what accommodations are available for them. Thank you.
I don't know if we can send out an e-blast for that. I believe the recreation department is ADA accessible. I think there are upgrades to the doors.
Yes.
And I think also in addition, there is absentee, no excuse voting, and there are 2 drop-off boxes that are available. One I believe up by the parking lot A near the manager's office or the human services office, as well as in front of the library, which is ADA accessible. So for anyone who wishes to vote absentee, that option is also available. So thank you, Heather. Is there anyone else from the public? All right. Oh.
Hi, Cindy Fontanella, 14 Anthony Road, Tolland, Connecticut. I have just a couple questions. You had a slide that had officers being added on, and it was going to get paid for the first 3 years. And then what's going to happen? Can we go back to that slide?
Yeah,
or?
sure thing. So I think that was slide 8, I believe. Let's see.
And I wanted to know what was the cost of that? Because I missed that.
Slide 7.
Yeah.
And what was your idea of how to fund that?
One more day. There you go. So yeah, it was at the end of, I believe, December or November, the town applied for a SAFER grant for up to 3 or to hire 3 public safety officers. It was incorporated into the budget as a goal. In the event we didn't get the grant, we still wanted to add the position. But in the event we do get the grant, there's still a discussion of how the funds would be used. But one thought is to put the funds away into, I believe it was a dedicated fund or into
Municipal stabilization.
yeah, the municipal stabilization fund that currently has a $0 balance, and that in subsequent years, those funds would be built up. So once we got to year 3, year 4, and the grant no longer covered those positions, the fund from there would stabilize the impact to the mill rate by having those positions added.
Okay, so right now one is being funded already. It
Yes.
seems like, and then there would be 2 more added. Is
Yeah.
that clear? Okay. And then you had a slide about the other towns and how their budget looks like about this year, like 4%, and we're coming in under that. But is it not true that last year, most of those towns did not have an increase at all? They were most of them were all flat. Is that true?
That I wouldn't be 100% certain of. I do know at least in 2020, for fiscal year 2020-2021, Tolland did a zero mill rate increase, so that budget was flat. But I'm not sure, I don't have the presentation from last year, or if that one did incorporate any.
Because I
What the
believe
other towns are
Ellington staff were, I think they were flat last year, so this is kind of like a skewed information. If they were flat and now they're going up to like 4, we're going up to like, we're 3. I mean, but still, we went up last year.
Yeah,
What was our percentage last year that we went up?
last year I believe was about, I think it's 2.65 or, yes, there was an increase in the budget last year.
Okay, so for the 2 years, we're over 6 around. And if some of these are flat last year, we're a little bit higher than that. We're more in the outlier stage then.
Potentially, we'd have to have each number to calculate the average as well as do a 2-year average, so, but no, thank you for sharing that.
And then lastly, you had our assessed values of our vehicles going up about 25%, is that correct?
Yes, that was, I think, 25.49, and it seems, I think, from that slide that's on right now, the average seems to be somewhere between as low as 22% to 27%, though I think the double asterisk for Vernon indicated that was a reval year. But no, in general, it's about 20, I think 24 seems to be about the average.
Yeah, when we did the calculations, about 25% increase, just about.
And our home
average.
is not, our houses are not going up this year, is that?
No, can't, until the next revaluation.
Do you know when that is?
2023, 24.
23. Okay, because I just looked at my taxes and there was $1,000 for my 2014 and 2016 vehicles, so it's going up 25%, that's $250. And so if they're saying our taxes are going down, they're not gonna go down, they're really still gonna go up quite a bit. It's right, because our mill rate is going down a little bit, $40 maybe.
Well, I wouldn't say that, your particular vehicle went up 25%. The overall brand list for motor vehicles went up 25%, but certain cars had different values depending on what type of vehicle you had. So you really have to take a look at your tax bill for last year for your motor vehicles, their assessed value versus this year to really get a feel for what your percentage was. But the overall percentage.
Yeah, but we won't get that till after our taxes, after May, so I was just trying to make an estimate.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna know for sure anything until after the referendum goes through, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Are there any other questions or comment from the public? Going once? Going twice? Item 6 is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, wait, sorry, Kenny Trice.
Hi, Kenny Trice, 53 Doe Run. First, just overall, I support the budget. I think that we've gone through some hard times, but part of the things that jumped out at me is burnout of the staff and things that they have been going through. So we need to, as we've said, rebuild. We definitely need to help our areas. We have a lot of services here in town. So overall, I'm just going to cut it real short. I'm in full support of the budget. I want to thank everybody that's worked on it. I think this is a way for us to move forward, rebuild our town based on the struggles that we've had over the past 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Is there anyone else from the public? We're going to give one more round of going once, going twice. All right, now we'll move on to item 6, adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 7:25 p.m.
Lulu will make that motion.
Motion made by Councilor Lula. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman Yudichak. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, we are adjourned at 7:25 p.m. Thank you, everyone.